Good morning, everyone. We will start in a few. Just settle down. So if everyone is ready, good morning, everyone. I'm Antonio Buscardini. I'm the president of the Press Club Brussels, Europe. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all and to moderate today's discussion. I have to admit that I arrived in Brussels 2 hours ago from a night flight in Hong Kong, but there are moments that you simply can't miss, and this is clearly one of them, for several reasons that I wanted to briefly explain. First of all, this event is part of a series of discussions on Kazakhstan, launched here in Brussels by Ambassador Roman Vasilenko, entitled Shanirag, Dialogues. So Shanirag Dialogues, it goes beyond policy. It also embraces culture. I see here a few faces that attended events on Navruz, and also the fantastic event at the City Hall in Sanjir, from Astana to Brussels, a musical journey. And here it was, we had the luck of listening to the Astana Philharmonica that brought Kazakh folk and classical music to Brussels. So moments like this remind us engagement between Kazakhstan and the EU and Europe in general, that through culture and shared experience we can learn about each other. Secondly, this is also a special moment for us, the Press Club, because it's our 15th anniversary. So we reached a big milestone where we are organizing now and hosting more than 400 events a year. And just 1 week ago, on Monday, we launched here in this house a hub that welcomes embassies and especially press officers to our club. So our club is constituted by journalists, communication professionals, but now in my presidency we also open to press officers. And Kazakhstan was present, and in fact I salute the embassy and the ambassador, because this is the first event since then that an embassy organizes here. So thank you very much for being here. So today's discussion, we are talking about a new Kazakhstan, the results of the constitutional referendum. So for those who don't have the date in mind, on the 15th of March, there was a referendum in Kazakhstan where 87% of voters supporting the new constitution, and with 87% of voters supporting the new constitution, and a turnover of 73%. So the idea today is to go beyond the headlines, to have a discussion about the insides of these results, having the Kazakh perspective, but also the EU perspective from the European Parliament. We will have a message from an MEP, but also the cabinet of President Antonio Costa, and also an observer that went there, Alberto Tuskra, that will tell us a lot about these insights. So I would like now to give the floor to Ambassador Vasilenko, who will give a first overview of this referendum results. So, Ambassador, thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear moderator, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all today to another event of the Shanirag Dialogues, launched indeed 2 months ago here in Brussels. Shanirag, as our good friend Antonio Buscardini, Shanirag Dialogues is a series of focused discussions on Kazakhstan and around Kazakhstan, and on what it means for our relations with the European Union and the rest of the world. Indeed, in fact, interestingly, our first discussion under the Shanirag Dialogue series took place just 2 weeks before the referendum in early March, and it was focused on the referendum and on the constitution, so it's very symbolic that the second one is now, although not under the actual Shanirag. Shanirag, for those who don't know, is the top of the yurt, the traditional Kazakh felt house you can see on the logo. This is the Shanirag. Those of you who can visit our embassy will see the actual yurt being established on the grounds of our embassy, and the actual Shanirag is there, and the actual and the future Shanarag dialogue series will take place there, including on issues that are not only related to politics, including on tourism, for example. The next one will be in May. But today we follow up on that first event, indeed, and it was about an important milestone that at that point we were planning to reach, and we did reach as a country. We did adopt a new constitution through a nationwide referendum, which marked a historic moment for our country. It demonstrated the clear will of the people of Kazakhstan to support a new model of statehood based on deeper democracy, stronger institutions, and greater accountability. By choosing reform through public participation, our citizens reaffirmed that the future of Kazakhstan must be shaped through dialogue, inclusion, and the rule of law. And the constitutional changes are substantial and far-reaching. They strengthen the balance of powers between the branches of government, enhance the role of our parliament, and increase the responsibility of local authorities. They expand protection for human rights, reinforce the independence of the Constitutional Court, and create new mechanisms through which citizens can participate more actively in public life. In essence, these reforms represent Kazakhstan's commitment to building a just and fair Kazakhstan, a state where institutions serve the people, where economic progress is accompanied by social justice, and where governance is transparent and responsive. I'm privileged and honored to be joined today here by Mr. Evgeny Bolgert, the Senator of Kazakhstan, the Chair of the Constitutional Committee in the Senate of Kazakhstan, who arrived yesterday and already had the chance to contribute to supporting the good causes by running the 10 kilometers in the Ukhl run yesterday. So he will have the opportunity to talk more about details about these reforms and, of course, respond to your questions. I will just say a few words about what these reforms and changes we think will mean for our relations with the European Union. We think they carry particular significance for these relations with the EU. The EU is one of Kazakhstan's most important and trusted partners. Our cooperation has always been grounded in shared interests: economic modernization, connectivity, sustainable development, energy security, education, and of course promoting people-to-people ties. But this cooperation is also increasingly based on shared norms: respect for law, institutional resilience, and citizen participation. This constitutional transformation that we are undergoing right now in Kazakhstan opens new opportunities to deepen our partnership under the Enhanced Partnership and Cooperation Agreement with the EU, which we did sign in 2015 and which is in full force since March 2020. So this reform creates stronger foundations for investor confidence, for judicial predictability, and for regulatory transparency. And these are essential elements for expanding our trade, for attracting more investment, and promoting innovation. Moreover, as Kazakhstan continues playing a constructive role in regional stability and intercontinental connectivity, a more open and reform-oriented political system that we are building right now strengthens our ability to serve as a reliable partner for Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, this reform is not a one-off event. It is part of an ongoing process. And Kazakhstan understands that constitutional renewal must be and will be followed by practical implementation, continuous dialogue, and measurable progress. And we remain fully committed to this path. We believe that a stronger, more democratic Kazakhstan will also mean a stronger partnership with the European Union. Together we can build, and we are building, a relationship that is strategic, forward-looking, and beneficial for our citizens. I thank you for your attention and look forward to also participating in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your remarks, you highlighted an essential point. Reform is not a single event, it's an ongoing process. This will be certainly our guide throughout the discussion today. We now turn to the European Parliament perspective. We have the pleasure of having here a message from MEP Princi, Chair of the European Parliament Delegation for Relations with Central Asia. Ms. Princi will share her views on Kazakhstan's reform process and its implications on the EU-Central Asia relations.
Gentilissimi tutti, purtroppo impegni istituzionali mi trattengono in Italia e non mi consentono di essere presente quest'oggi. Rivolgo un caloroso saluto al mio caro amico, Sua Eccellenza l'ambasciatore Roman Vassilienko, in uno spirito di rinnovata collaborazione che vede il Kazakistan, insieme ai paesi dell'Asia centrale, partner strategico dell'Europa. Credo sia fondamentale continuare a costruire un ponte solido fondato su valori condivisi quali la democrazia e il buon governo, nonché su interessi economici e commerciali, soprattutto nel contesto geopolitico attuale. Il Kazakistan è un paese bellissimo ed è stato il primo della regione che ho avuto il privilegio di visitare come presidente della delegazione per le relazioni con l'Asia centrale, accompagnando la più numerosa missione che il paese abbia mai ospitato. Come sappiamo, le relazioni tra Unione Europea e Kazakistan, avviate sin dall'indipendenza del 1991, negli anni hanno conosciuto un progressivo e costante consolidamento, soprattutto grazie all'accordo rafforzato di partenariato e cooperazione, confermando il ruolo del Paese come interlocutore chiave dell'Unione nell'area, con particolare attenzione alla sicurezza regionale e alla cooperazione nel settore delle materie prime critiche essenziali per la transizione digitale e sostenibile. Relazioni a cui nell'esercizio del mio ruolo di Presidente e insieme a tutta la delegazione sto dando grande impulso. Un esempio sono infatti i recenti negoziati sugli accordi di facilitazione dei visti che imprimeranno una svolta e una maggiore mobilità, facilitando i contatti tra cittadini, imprese e comunità accademiche. Questo percorso potrà fungere da apripista anche per altri paesi dell'Asia centrale, contribuendo a promuovere un'apertura e un'interconnessione sempre più ampie tra le nostre regioni. La cultura e il capitale umano hanno un ruolo centrale nei nostri rapporti. Li stiamo coltivando con programmi già esistenti come Horizon Europe ed Erasmus Plus e continueremo a rafforzarli, certi che l'educazione e l'istruzione siano i più importanti motori di cambiamento della società civile e di sviluppo dei territori. I nostri rapporti, in un contesto internazionale segnato da profonde trasformazioni, sono essenziali. L'Asia centrale è per l'Europa un partner importante anche nell'ottica di diversificare i mercati e di ricercare nuove alleanze. Il recente forum interparlamentare UE-Asia centrale, tenutosi in Uzbekistan e da me fortemente sostenuto in qualità di Presidente, va proprio in questo senso. Un passaggio storico che ha avviato un dialogo strutturato e multilaterale tra i nostri Parlamenti e fatto emergere ancora una volta una chiara volontà a procedere con relazioni più solide. In questo quadro il rapporto tra Unione Europea e Kazakistan rappresenta una direttrice fondamentale della cooperazione con l'Asia centrale, con ampi margini di sviluppo in ambiti strategici come la connettività, la transizione energetica, la sicurezza e appunto la cultura. Dunque è essenziale continuare a promuovere un partenariato concreto e orientato ai risultati, capace di rispondere alle sfide globali e cogliere le opportunità future. Anche in questo scenario desidero esprimere quindi il mio sincero apprezzamento per l'iniziativa di oggi, che rappresenta un'importante occasione di confronto e si colloca nel solco di un ponte tra l'Europa e l'Asia centrale, che vede nella condivisione, nei processi riformatori e nella democrazia partecipata i presupposti dello Stato di diritto. Augurandovi un proficuo dibattito, rivolgo un caloroso saluto a te, amico Roman, e a tutti i tuoi gentili ospiti. A presto.
Okay, grazie mille. So we continue with European perspective from another institution. Our next speaker has a very good timing, and she works for the cabinet of President António Costa, for the foreign policy advisor, and she will address how Kazakhstan constitutional reforms are being assessed at the highest level in the EU, and what implications they might have for the future of EU-Kazakhstan relations. So please, Ms. Jefferson, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and let me first start by congratulating the Embassy of Kazakhstan for organizing this event. For us who have been following the developments around this constitutional changes and referendum, it's been a long process, and it's nice to finally see that it's come to a conclusion and to a very positive one. I'm not sure that I will be able to outline everything that you mentioned, because I'm really not a constitutional expert, but I wanted to be here today because, first of all, because for my president and for the current commission that we have, not just for the council, but also the commission and the External Action Service, the relations that we have with Central Asia and with Kazakhstan has really reached a new height and a new level of cooperation, but also a level of ambition, and where the main pillars for this collaboration was set out in the EU Central Asia Summit in Samarkand last year, that in our view marked a turning point and reaffirming both sides' ambitions to deepen and modernize our engagement and our cooperation. And this is why it's very interesting to follow all the reforms, all the additional reforms that will come with this constitutional outcome. I would just like to highlight a few things from the council side, and coming back to the joint declaration that was adopted in Samarkand. It was not only, like I mentioned, that it was a turning point in our relationship, but it also highlighted shared priorities around a large number of areas, such as connectivity, including the development of the Trans-Caspian Middle Corridor, enhanced cooperation on energy diversification, critical raw materials, on rule of law, regional stability and resilience. And looking from the international perspective, which is very much what my president focuses on, it also reaffirmed our joint commitment to a rules-based international order. And these are elements that are, I think, following everyone who's reading the news today, know that our partnership is not just about being able to address challenges in the past, but actually address the challenges that we see every day and that are rapidly changing. So in this current geopolitical context, the fact that we have a partnership that is forward-looking and that is based on finding joint ways to, within the international rules-based order, find joint solutions to joint problems. The constitutional reform that Kazakhstan is undertaking will provide an important momentum. I had the pleasure of following President Tokayev's speech during the Antalya Forum, and I think it very much resonates with the priorities that my president has set out in various forums, including in one of the international summits that took place in Barcelona this weekend. So it's very clear that what we do within our partnerships, what we do domestically, will also serve as a contribution to the global world order as we would like to define and reaffirm it together. The momentum that was reached by the summit in Samarkand has also continued, including through a very successful in my own words, of my president António Costa to Kazakhstan in December. And his engagement with President Tokayev reflected not only the strategic importance of the EU-Kazakhstan relation, but also the constructive and forward-looking personal rapport that these two presidents have. They have, during several occasions, discussed, and I think they have very converging views when it comes to how we should reform the international financial institutions, the UN Security Council, the UN as a whole, and also how the small and mid-powers like Portugal, like Kazakhstan, can actually actively contribute to this work, and how that will underpin our reforms within the legal systems, but also when it comes to democracy, when it comes to participations of all parts of society. It needs to go hand in hand with what we want to do domestically and what we would like to do on the international reform. So in his public remarks, President Costa underlined Kazakhstan's role as a key partner in the region and welcomed the reform agenda, in particular the constitutional one. And while both leaders emphasized the importance of deepening cooperation, such as connectivity and energy and economic diversification, it was also clear that this visit and the direct engagement has helped to further strengthen the mutual trust and understanding at the highest political level between the European Union and Kazakhstan. And I know that my president is eagerly following the reforms that are ongoing. We know that you have a good collaboration with many parts of the European institutions, and I think this is also where we can come in as a reliable partner, because we do have experience of undertaking these kinds of reforms when it comes to best practices, but also to challenges. And we do have a wide range of accompanying measures that we could support these reforms, working closely with the Commission, but also with the External Action Service. So I'm sorry for not being able to address all the complexities, because I think there are better experts in this audience than me for this. But from the council side, from my personal side, from my president's side, we very much look forward to maintaining this high-level engagement with Kazakhstan, and very much through our very active EU ambassador and EU delegation in Astana. And we are, of course, very much looking forward to the fact that President Tokayev will visit Brussels in June, and where we will have an opportunity to further follow these very interesting reforms. I think especially what you are exploring when it comes to AI and when it comes to how to make the juridical system more predictable, more accessible, and more cost efficient is something that could serve as an example. Because AI is a fantastic tool when it's used right, but it's also a tool that needs to be regulated to protect citizens, but also to protect societies and to create the resilience that we are all working together. So against this backdrop, the constitutional referendum, in my view, represents a significant moment in Kazakhstan's development, and the high level of participation and engagement will be essential for shaping the reform process to ensure that it's both inclusive and sustainable. And for international partners, these developments are closely followed, and with the expectation that they will contribute to a more stable, transparent, and predictable environment, key elements for strengthening our mutual long-term cooperation. So I think, to conclude, today's discussions offers an important opportunity to better understand the direction of these reforms and their implication, both domestically, but also in relations to Kazakhstan's engagement and exchange with the European Union. So thank you so much for having this opportunity, and I look forward to listening to the further exchanges. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participation. What we can retain before moving on to the next cycle is that there are 4 key points. One, you mentioned the timeline, so June is approaching where we'll have a visit. It will be very interesting to see how things will move on in the relation between the EU and Kazakhstan. The second point is the ambition of this reform. The third is the institutional transformation underway. And the fourth, of course, is the importance of the Kazakhstan partnership with the EU at the economical level. These 4 points will be digged in the next discussion, where we will talk in detail about the referendum. So we will have 2 speakers. The first one will be Evgeny Bolgar. He comes, and he was said by the ambassador from Kazakhstan, and he ran yesterday 10 kilometers. That was very impressive indeed. And he's the secretary of the Committee on Constitutional Legislation, Judicial System, and Law Enforcement Agencies of the Senate of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan. So please, Mr. Bolgar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here today with you in Brussels, in the heart of the European Union and the Global Center for Democracy, Human Rights and the Rule of Law. I sincerely thank His Excellency Roman Vasilenko, Ambassador of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the Kingdom of Belgium and Head of Mission to the European Union, and our moderator as well for this nice place for discussion and for organizing this round table, for the opportunity to discuss the practical meaning and next steps of our constitutional reform. As you already know, on 15th March 2026, Kazakhstani citizens overwhelmingly supported the new constitution with a turnout of 73.12% and 87.15% voting in favor. The referendum demonstrated broad public endorsement for a more modern, balanced and accountable system of governance. So what does the new constitution mean in practice? It established a clear model: strong president, influential parliament, accountable government. This architecture is designed to deliver more effective decision-making, stronger protection of citizens' rights, and greater resilience in a rapidly changing world. Key practical changes include a streamlined unicameral Kurultai of 145 members, which will make the legislative process faster and more responsive to the needs of society. The reintroduction of the office of Vice President, ensuring better continuity and distribution of executive responsibilities. The creation of the People's Council of Kazakhstan, Khalik Kenesi, as a high-level advisory body with legislative initiative rights, broadening public and regional participation in policy making. Significantly strengthened safeguards for human rights and individual freedoms, now placed at the very center of the constitutional order. Guarantees of property rights, privacy, the inviolability of the home, and personal data protection, especially in the digital sphere, have been reinforced. Greater independence for the Constitutional Court, enabling effective oversight of all branches of power. These changes shift the focus from legacy structures toward a system that prioritizes the individual, the rule of law, and adaptive governance capable of addressing contemporary challenges such as digital transformation, green transition, and geopolitical complexity. The new constitution enters into full force on the 1st July 2026. In the coming months and years, our main task will be its effective implementation. We will focus on developing and adopting the necessary package of organic laws to operationalize the Kurultai, the Vice Presidency, and the People's Council, strengthening checks and balances through enhanced judicial independence and parliamentary oversight mechanisms, further promoting political pluralism and inclusive participation, including through the existing 30% quotas for women, youth, and persons with disabilities in party lists and leadership positions. Advancing gender equality and social inclusion, Kazakhstan remains committed to the Beijing Declaration, CEDAW, and the concept for family and gender policy until 2030. We continue to criminalize domestic violence, protect children, and empower women economically. We look forward to sharing experiences and learning from best practices of the European Union in this area. Accelerating progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals. At the initiative of President Tokayev, a UN regional hub for SDG implementation is being established in Almaty, which will serve as a platform for regional cooperation. For our European partners, the new constitutional framework signals predictability, legal certainty, and a deepening commitment to modern governance standards. By embedding the protection of fundamental freedoms and the rule of law into the core of our state system, we create a more solid and reliable foundation for long-term cooperation. Kazakhstan is determined to act as a strategic bridge between Europe and Asia. We see the new constitution as a catalyst for closer partnership with the EU, our largest trading partner and key investor in energy transition and green hydrogen projects, development of critical raw materials supply chains, digital governance and cybersecurity, infrastructure connectivity through the Middle Corridor. Stable, transparent, and accountable institutions will help reduce risks and increase confidence for European investors in energy transport and logistics. We are already witnessing growing container traffic along the Middle Corridor and welcome joint efforts with the EU to modernize infrastructure, improve logistics, and enhance regional integration. In conclusion, the adoption of the new constitution is not the end of the journey. It is a beginning of intensive practical work. A new Just Kazakhstan is a long-term commitment to building a resilient, inclusive, and forward-looking state. We highly value the perspectives, expertise, and constructive engagement of our European partners. Your feedback and cooperation will be instrumental as we move forward with implementation. I am confident that today's discussion will contribute to a deeper mutual understanding and open new avenues for our partnership. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We will move on with our last speaker before going to debate. Our speaker now is Alberto Turkstra from Diplomatic World. He's the project director. Albert is not only analyzing these developments from an European perspective, but he was also on the ground. He was in Kazakhstan as an observer during the referendum, so he has witnessed the process, and he has certainly insights that it's worth listening to. So, Alberto, please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to the Embassy and Ambassador Vasilenko for convening us today, and for you, dear Antonio, because you came straight from the airport after a long overnight flight from the Far East. So thank you very much for your commitment and your moderation today. So speaking last is, of course, always a challenge. Almost everything has been said, and I'm standing between you and the lunch. Nevertheless, I would like to share a few reflections based on my experience observing the referendum last month, as well as my discussions in Astana with international observers, officials, and also the members of the think tank community. Now, in my view, the adoption of the new constitution indeed marks a decisive effort to recalibrate the country's institutional architecture and redefine the relationship between state, society, and economy. It strengthens the legal framework to respond effectively to rapid socio-economic change, technological advancement, and evolving global governance standards. What differentiates the new constitution is its strong emphasis on positive rights. Positive rights are entitlements that require, in this case, the government to provide certain conditions necessary for people's well-being, such as healthcare, education, social security, property rights, etc. Notably, the new constitution expands the state's obligations towards its citizens into new areas, including digital rights, with protections for personal data and privacy to ensure that technological progress does not undermine fundamental freedoms. And there is, of course, the expansion of mechanisms through which citizens can defend and protect their rights, particularly through the Constitutional Court. So taking together these commitments reaffirm Kazakhstan's identity as a social state. Now on the issue of timing, why is it happening now? Now, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan focused on consolidating its sovereignty, ensuring internal stability, forging a cohesive national identity, preserving inter-ethnic harmony, and securing its rightful place among the community of nations. The 1995 constitution supported these aims by establishing a strong presidential system suited to guiding a large and diverse country through uncertain times. Like many early constitutions and newly independent states, it prioritized stability and control, reflecting the urgent and often existential challenges of the time. With those objectives largely fulfilled, roughly one generation later, Kazakhstan is revisiting its constitutional model. The current phase is all about enhancing the quality, the accountability, and the resilience of the country's governing institutions. During these 3 decades, Kazakhstan society has also undergone profound changes. Rapid urbanization, rising educational attainment, digital connectivity, and the emergence of a more active civil society have contributed to evolving expectations regarding governance. Citizens increasingly expect public institutions not only to ensure stability, but to provide transparency, accountability, and effective channels for participation in public decision-making. At its core, the new constitution aims to define a clearer separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. One of the most significant changes in the legislative branch is the transition from bicameral to a unicameral legislature. This reform is designed to streamline lawmaking, reduce duplication, and enhance efficiency. Similar institutional shifts have been successfully implemented in the past in countries like Sweden, Denmark, New Zealand, and Belgium too has taken the first steps to abolish the Senate and move to a unicameral parliament. If we look at it from a global perspective, unicameral systems are in fact more common, with around 60% of legislatures operating under a single chamber compared to roughly 40% that remain bicameral. So in this respect, Kazakhstan aligns with the broader international trend. In the new unicameral parliament, as you've heard, all 145 deputies will be elected through party lists. This change increases the formal importance of political parties in legislative representation and gives them a more defined institutional role within the political system. It also builds on earlier reforms such as simplified party registration and introduction of quotas for women, youth, and persons with disabilities in party lists. The upcoming parliamentary elections, which will be held at some point in August, I think the date is not fixed yet, following the entry into force of the constitution on July 1st. This will be the first major test for political parties and their ability to develop clearer and more differentiated political programs and ideological platforms, enabling voters to have a genuine choice among diverse visions for the country's development. And it might as well foster a new political culture centered on coalition building and compromise. In recent weeks, we have seen several initiatives to establish new political parties, reflecting the visible results already of constitutional reforms, which paved the way for more active participation of political parties in public life. Now, perhaps the most distinctive feature of the new framework is the creation of the People's Council of Kazakhstan. Unlike previous consultative bodies such as the National Council on Public Trust or the Assembly of the Peoples of Kazakhstan, which held exclusively an advisory role, this institution will have the authority to initiate legislation for the consideration of the parliament. Comprising representatives from regional authorities, civil society, and ethnic communities, the council is intended to put into practice the concept of a listening state, a governing philosophy that has been one of the hallmarks of President Tokayev. This therefore represents a bold institutional experiment in bottom-up governance in a country that has traditionally been accustomed to more top-down political structures. Of course, in the coming months, it will be interesting to observe how the seats in the Council will be allocated, what criteria will be used for selection, how frequently the Council will meet, and how proactive it will be in proposing legislative initiatives. While the constitutional reform has important domestic implications for the functioning of Kazakhstan's political system, its significance also extends to the country's regional and global position. In an increasingly interconnected world, the quality and stability of national institutions play a critical role in shaping a country's international standing and credibility, its attractiveness for investment, and its ability to participate effectively in regional and global cooperation frameworks. Kazakhstan, of course, occupies a strategically significant position between Europe and Asia, serving as a vital transit hub for trade, energy, and infrastructure. As an active and responsible participant in the international system, it is well placed to shape regional dynamics. Institutional modernization can further reinforce Kazakhstan's role as a stabilizing anchor in Central Asia and its consolidation as a so-called middle power, a state that combines economic capacity with sustained diplomatic engagement and ability to act as a credible mediator in international affairs. Foreign investors and international partners increasingly assess countries not only on economic potential, but also on the quality of governance. A modernized constitutional framework can therefore enhance Kazakhstan's attractiveness as an investment destination and reinforce its reputation as a reliable partner. This is particularly important as global economic competition intensifies and supply chains face increasing fragmentation. The new constitution also defines the development of human capital as a strategic mandate of the state. In this sense, constitutional reform is closely linked to Kazakhstan's broader economic and social transformation strategy, including its ambition to join the ranks of the world's 30 most developed economies by 2050. Kazakhstan, as you know, is currently undergoing a significant economic transition from a model historically based on the extraction and export of natural resources towards a more diversified and knowledge-based economy. Such a transition inevitably raises the importance of institutional capacity. Economic modernization cannot be sustained without a governance system capable of managing complex policy agendas and supporting long-term strategic planning. In this process, there is a risk of falling into a middle-income trap, a situation where countries struggle to attain high-income status, and a concern that has been referred to by the President in a number of interviews. All international financial institutions offer a consistent recommendation to overcome this challenge: innovation-driven development. It is therefore not a surprise that the new constitution explicitly references to education, to science, to technological innovation as strategic priorities for national development. This reflects a growing recognition that the prosperity and competitiveness of modern states increasingly depends on the quality of human capital. These provisions establish an institutional framework that will enable day-to-day legislation to capitalize on Kazakhstan's competitive and comparative advantages, including artificial intelligence and digitalization, areas in which Kazakhstan has already established itself as a regional leader. Let me conclude then by saying that the constitutional reform marks a decisive milestone in Kazakhstan's evolution, reinforcing a more balanced, accountable, and participatory system of governance while laying a forward-looking foundation centered on human capital, innovation, and education, thereby positioning the country well to navigate the complexities of the 21st century with greater resilience and greater effectiveness. Thank you very much for listening. I think I went over time, but the floor is back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, dear Alberto. We do still have a bit of time to have a proper discussion with our public. I will perhaps shoot first a question and before we open the discussion, which is a question, of course, regarding change. Change is always challenging, has obstacles. So if you could, the three speakers, identify one concrete obstacle on the ground for this transition, what could we expect after the 1st of July?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think we have to avoid the loss of accountability and the loss of institutional control. So that's why, in my opinion, we need as soon as possible the effective and strong legal framework. So at that time, my colleagues in Astana are working now on 6 draft of constitutional laws regarding the Kurultai, regarding the People's Council, and regarding the voting process in Kazakhstan. So that's why we need effective procedures and strong legal framework, I would say.
Nasser.
If I may add, I think, and I will focus not on obstacles but on the processes, and I think Alberto already mentioned that the party politics has intensified. Just last week we saw a new initiative to establish a new party that will be the, if registered, that will be the 8th party that is registered in Kazakhstan. There are 6 now in the parliament, in the current parliament. So that new party is promising to focus on justice. The name is Justice, Adlet, and in support of the president's policies for a just and fair Kazakhstan. So it will be an interesting dynamics to watch come some date in August. And in fact, the elections in Kazakhstan are held on a Sunday, so we need to watch out for a Sunday sometime in August that it will take place. And under the new constitution that will enter into force, as mentioned, on the 1st of July, the new unicameral parliament is to enter it in operation, is to be inaugurated on the first working day of September. So I guess that's the ultimate goal, and that's towards which everybody will be working right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alberto?
Yes, similar in the, is it working? Yeah, in the same line, of course, we will be looking at the ability of these new initiatives and new political parties to be able to register on time. August is only 3 months away, and the ability to design full party programs between now and then, so the timing is tight. So we'll see how far we can get. And also regarding the new institution, the People's Council, we will be observing closely how it will be formed, how transparent the process will be, and then once established, of course, what will be, how proactive they will be in suggesting legislation for the consideration of the new parliament. These are a few of the things we'll be observing.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we'll open the floor to questions. Please briefly introduce yourself and your organization before asking questions. Yes, please. We should have a mic. Yeah. Exactly. It might be handy.
Hello, Catherine Fior, EU reporter. If I could ask about the choice of a party list system, you mentioned this people's representative group so that, you know, a diverse range of voices are represented in a sense. But I just wondered, you know, is this party list also geographical in nature? You know, usually people combine sort of a party list system with some sort of regional distribution. So I'm just wondering if you're doing that. And also on the group, that the people's group, I mean, we've seen in Europe how European Citizens Initiative has been heralded as some sort of way for people's voices to be heard, but in actual fact hasn't been terribly successful in doing that. And I'm just wondering, what models are you looking at around the world that make you think that this will work, or the way that you will manage it will work better than elsewhere? Thank you.
Yeah, I tried to start because your questions were quite difficult to explain in short time, but I will start with the end of your questions. So the model, what we try to create now in Kazakhstan regarding the dialogue between civil society and the state bodies, for example, we try to establish the platform which is called Халық кеңесі. It means the People's Council. There are 3 parts of representatives. So the first part will be represent different ethnic groups living in Kazakhstan. The second group will be represent the regions. So civil councils and maslihats, the local assemblies, local representatives. And the third part will be representing the active NGOs. So yeah, so that's why how we will manage. It's a good question, but all procedures will be detailed in the law regarding the People's Council. But anyway, we try to have a small society, I would say. Like, we will try to discuss the most important things on the platform of the People's Council, and that's why this institution will have the right for initiate the new legislative acts through Kurultai. So the People's Council will have a right to initiate the new laws in Kazakhstan.
If I may just add further context to this initiative, the People's Council will then be like a sounding board. It will not be, of course, the parliament. The parliament will do its job, but this will be like an additional sounding board that will provide an extra opportunity for the civil society, for ethnic groups to be represented, and for all the regions to have a say. This new institution, it will, well, in a sense, not replace, but be a successor to several similar organizations or institutions or associations, including the Assembly of the People of Kazakhstan, which will be no longer, but it has existed for 30 years, bringing together representatives of all 130 ethnic groups in Kazakhstan. Then it will be, in a sense, following up on what the Senate currently is, but without the legislative powers, when it will be representing the offering a floor to regions and to civil society institutions. I hope I didn't make it more confusing than before your question.
All right. Perhaps we will move on with the next question, and please try to remain concise. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's normally
Briefly.
120 seats, right? The People's Council, 126, 42 of each group, of the regions, of ethnic groups, and civil society. Just to clarify.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you also, Ambassador Vasilenko, for the invitation for this timely and I think really important event. My name is Dietmar Chrysler. I work for the European External Action Service on Central Asia. It's more a comment that I have, not so much a question, because I think questions we have on a daily basis that we're dealing with the ambassador and his team and the authorities in Astana. But definitely Kazakhstan is an important strategic partner for the European Union in Central Asia, and that is, I think, particularly important in this context of global disorder that we find ourselves. We welcome definitely all political processes that aim, I would say, at strengthening democracy in our partner countries. And this referendum was definitely one of an important step in this regard. It's important that such developments in Kazakhstan can support and I would say greater individual freedoms, citizens' participation, enhanced governance, and more robust democratic institutions. And I think it was in particular Alberto that mentioned that. And here, with this referendum, I think Kazakhstan has really embarked on an important reform process to modernize its political system, and the EU is in support of that reform process. And we're doing this also through our regular consultations, for example, on human rights, on the rule of law. Just a few weeks ago, we were in Astana. We had our annual human rights dialogue, and these are important elements in this process. So I just wanted to make this comment of the EU support for this reform, important element of Kazakhstan's political reform. Thank you.
Well received. Thank you. Is there any other question?
So thank you. I was also there during the constitution, so I will just highlight what I see as a journalist. We saw a high level the participation from the whole population. So we saw young people, they were involved on this constitution, also the oldest one. And there were also different observations from different countries. For example, they were experts from France, from Belgium, from Poland. So we were able to visit all the voting polls, all the voting stations the whole day. So it was very amazing to see that there were a hope from the population, because we can highlight that Kazakhstan is one of the main countries in Central Asia who is trying to reach a real democratization. And the one-term presidency is also important, mainly in ex-Soviet Union countries, because it's obvious that Kazakhstan is trying to reach democratization. So as a journalist, I wanted to highlight this fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if somebody has a question? Yes.
Yes, I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Yes. Okay.
It's okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Andrea Mogni. I'm a former official of European Commission and European External Action Service. Thank you for your event today and your presentation. I have basically 3 questions. The first one, I would appreciate if you elaborate a bit more about the judicial system, how judges and how procurators are appointed, and who appoints them, and anti-corruption agency. I've seen the examples in Ukraine. There have been problems in Ukraine. There are many problems in Europe, and I would like to know how the anti-corruption agency is working, what is his role, his position. Second question is about the structure of your government. I understand that you have created a presidential republic. You have a president, you have a vice president, but you don't have a prime minister. Now, who is appointing? Do you have a prime minister? Prime minister is there, so I cancel my question. My third question is the following. You have a changed constitution. I suppose that you are going to change also a number of other legislative acts stemming from the change in the constitution. Commercial law, private law, public law, etc., etc. What is this legislative process? How long do you expect that it will take? Is there any possibility for Europe to inspire the legislation process and also to provide technical assistance and to provide good examples of what Europe has done in order to adjust its legislative framework to a changing environment? How can Europe help you and support you in this kind of transition? Thank you so much.
So, regarding the appointment of judges, it will be so the candidates will be suggested by the president to our parliament, to Kurultai, and they will so the judges will be appointed by the Kurultai. So now we do it through the Senate, and after the reform, they will be appointed by the Kurultai, by the unicameral parliament. But they will be suggested by the president to the Kurultai. No, they are independent as a branch, but they will be. So the system works like I said. So the president will be suggested, and they will be appointed by the Kurultai. Not by the judicial system internal. They will be discussed. All candidates will be discussed by Kurultai, because they represent the people of Kazakhstan. So the main idea is like this. We will implement the main parts of constitution in our different legislation. Commercial, no, but about the new institutions, like I said, about the parliament, about the People's Council, we do not have such laws for these institutions. That's why we are working now on creating this law in Kazakhstan. So that's why, and we have during the discussion on the draft of the constitution, we've got approximately 12,000 suggestions from our people. It was like a platform where every citizen can suggest their ideas. So that's why we analyzed all of them, and most of them are now in our constitution.
Yes, I'll be brief. Kazakhstan is a member of the Venice Commission, and we did discuss in the past various pieces of legislation with the Venice Commission, which provided recommendations on certain documents. So I think this is one avenue for cooperation that remains, and it's still very much valid. So that's as far as your last question about how Europe can participate. We're more than welcome. We study European experiences, as we do study experiences from around the world. Well, Europe, of course, is a continent of about 50 countries, so I guess you meant the European Union, which is a union of 27 countries, each with their own legislation. So it's a never-ending process of dialogue. Mr. Christopher mentioned several avenues for cooperation that we have. We are more than eager to continue both the subcommittee on justice, human rights dialogue, and other institutions which serve as the regular dialogue platform for Kazakhstan and the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. You want to comment as well?
Yes, briefly on how the EU can help. Kazakhstan has a very active cooperation with the Council of Europe in Strasbourg, which is the main body, of course, for human rights and rule of law. And in fact, we'll be going to Strasbourg later this week to participate in a side event there. So there is a lot of high-level visits back and forth and very active interaction with the Council of Europe and all the associated bodies. And concerning the timing of the new legislative acts, as Ambassador mentioned, the first working day of September, the new Kurultai, the new parliament will be formed, and after that we will start to see the new legislation taking effect.
Yes, and I will just add that, yes, it is a new constitution. but it is not a radical departure from the previous system. We still had the presidential system. We adapted it to modern circumstances by, again, by switching to a unicameral parliament so that the legislative process is faster, and it's more reflective of a unitary state of unitary system, not the unitary, what's this word? Not the federative state, what the other one? Huh? No, we are not a federative state.
Regional?
Yes, then unitary is the word, and sorry, I went blank on that. So it's more reflective of our structure as a state. Then we still are and remain and will be the presidential republic, but with some different additions, such as the position of the vice president. So we're not switching to a parliamentary system where the ruling party that wins in the election forms the government, which is still the case, but it is the president that is the head of state and that who appoints the ministers with the consent of the parliament, etc. So it's a presidential system. Again, it's not a radical departure from the previous past, it's adjustment. So that's why where needed, changes will be made and are being made into the constitutional laws that Senator Bolgert mentioned. For example, there will be a change also to a constitutional law on the president, reflecting the emergence of the position of the vice president, because it was not there. But the overwhelming majority of legislation that creates the legal framework for the functioning of the state will not require such massive reduction, massive editing, so amendments. So we will fine-tune those legislation acts that will require fine-tuning under the new constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I know there are more questions, but we passed our time, so we will continue our discussion during the reception. I would like to thank everyone, thank all the speakers, thank the Embassy of Kazakhstan to the EU for today's event. It was a pleasure to welcome you at the Press Club, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. So thank you so much.